Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'm David Garman, the Acting Undersecretary of the Department of Energy, and it is my pleasure and privilege to welcome you to the Ernest Orlando Lawrence Awards ceremony. The Lawrence Awards are among the nation's oldest and most esteemed awards. They were established in 1959 by the Atomic Energy Commission and are now proudly presented by the Department of Energy to mid-career U.S. scientists for significant contributions in their fields of science. The award consists of a citation signed by the Secretary of Energy, a 14-karat gold medal, and an honorarium of $50,000. You'll see the gold medals and citations displayed in this room. Let me point out that in selecting the recipients, we rely heavily on the scientific community. We invite over 2,500 individual scientists and scientific organizations to nominate candidates. A panel for each award category reviews the nominees and selects a recipient. These panels are comprised of scientists and engineers representing universities, national laboratories, and private sector research organizations. The panels make their recommendations to our Interagency Awards Committee, comprised of senior science executives from major federal research organizations. The Awards Committee then vets the process as being thorough and objective and makes its recommendation to the Secretary, who makes the final decision about the recipients. Today, we're giving the Lawrence Awards to 7 of the nation's most outstanding scientists. I would like to extend my personal congratulations to the recipients of the 2004 Ernest Orlando Lawrence Award. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce the Secretary of Energy, Spencer Abraham.
David, thank you very much. Each year I have the privilege of presenting some of the Energy Department's most prestigious awards as part of the job which I have, and each of those occasions, irrespective of what the award might be, is important and significant. But clearly, this special ceremony stands out, and I want to begin today by thanking the State Department, Secretary Powell, and the team here for once again offering us the opportunity to use this beautiful facility as part of the ceremony. We pride ourselves at the Department of Energy for having a workmanlike workplace. We do. Every time we have an event in this room, there's a certain part of me that starts looking at the budget each year to see if we could perhaps add a few accoutrements. But obviously the history of this room and this building is a very special, makes this a very special event. And so I'm very pleased to be here today to make these presentations of the Lawrence Award. And let me just begin by offering my congratulations to all of our 7 winners, as well as to your family and your friends and colleagues, many of whom I know have joined us here today. Obviously, any scientist who reaches this level of achievement has distinguished his or herself in their field of expertise, but we all know that these things don't totally happen in isolation. They happen because of a supportive family of friends who are and colleagues who are also in many ways a key part of the success of any of us. And so to all of the family and friends who are here today to support your recipients, we say thank you as well. As I think everybody knows, the Lawrence Award was established back in 1959 to honor the memory of course, of Dr. Ernest Orlando Lawrence, who invented the cyclotron, as we all know, and after whom 2 of our department's laboratories in Berkeley and Livermore, California, have been named. One of the formal purposes of this award is to inspire people of all ages through the examples of Ernest Orlando Lawrence and the Lawrence Award laureates. That objective is as important today, I think, and perhaps in some ways more so than it was when this award was established 45 years ago. Despite the incredible changes which have been brought about by science over the last several decades, we know that too often scientific accomplishments are veiled in obscurity. In part, this is because the work is complex. Fully understood only by a few, and so success really gets the attention it deserves sometimes. We live in a world where entertainers and Sports heroes enjoy celebrity and fame for what they achieve, and as a result, young people are often inspired to take up things like sports and music and acting. I think it is time, and we hope in events like today, that it's time we start putting our science leaders on the same footing as the others who attain great achievements in life. We must do this not only because their achievements are so important, in fact, I would contend the most important in the world today, but because we hope such focus, and I believe such focus, would help to encourage our children to want to learn science and math in addition to tennis and basketball. And that is why recently in the department we announced a new initiative which we call the STARS program. STARS stands for Scientists Teaching and Reaching Students. And we've done this to try to help put some of the phenomenal scientific resources and assets of our department to work to help educate and inspire our young people in this country so that they might pursue careers along the lines of what we do in our department. Among the things which this new program includes is a new Office of Science Education in the department. It's arranging to bring K-12 teachers to our department laboratories across the country for scientific training, as well as to send our own scientists out to schools to do things to try to inspire the students. We've also launched a website called Ask a Scientist, and just last month we held a What's Next conference in Chicago to try to talk about and show young people in the broader Chicago community some of the exciting things going on in science, with the hope that they would want to make that someday part of their lives. The idea behind all of these programs is to bring people, young people, into contact with science, not merely as observers or consumers, but as potential future scientists themselves. Not just students, but all Americans should understand the incredible way that science improves our lives and is shaping our future. And the work which is being done today throughout the department's network of laboratories will allow us, I think, to imagine a day when the enormous energy requirements of huge industrial centers throughout the world will be met by a power plant fueled by a little more than seawater and that produces virtually no harmful emissions, or to imagine a day when scientists use super intense light even more intense than the sun, to investigate the smallest particles known to man in an effort to devise 21st century fuels, or many other similar things. And it is, of course, the focus of the Lawrence Awards and the work of the people we are honoring here today that helps us to be inspired to pursue these things. Of course, the focus of these awards is in atomic science. Those outside the scientific community seldom realize just how broad this field can be and what kind of exciting discoveries it can yield. At the particle accelerators we run, we began work decades ago to try to understand the fundamental nature of matter and energy. But along the way, we also found the science used in our accelerators could provide miraculous new tools for the diagnosis and treatment of disease. Development of PET scans and MRIs was underpinned by our nuclear, high energy, and condensed matter physics research. Every day, 10,000 cancer patients are treated with electron beams from linear accelerators developed by that research. These life-saving technologies and many others would not have been possible without the intense and the devoted work done in the atomic sciences. Indeed, when Lawrence began experimenting with his cyclotron in the 1930s, his team almost immediately started applying the machine to medical research and later to medical applications. And that is the model of science which we honor here today by presenting this award to these men and women who illustrate so well Lawrence's vision of how science and scientists should operate. We are heirs to Lawrence and the other giants of his age. We have a responsibility to their memory, and I believe a duty to honor and advance their pioneering work in American science. I'm very proud to say that today's awardees are not only faithful stewards of this great inheritance, they are also creating a new inheritance, a legacy of science for the 21st century. We are all enriched by the contributions which these researchers have made, whether it's delineating the genetic structure of the HIV virus, or developing high-efficiency engines with no moving parts, or finding better ways to see the stars. These awards and the research for which they are given showcase some of the very best work which our department has done. And so I'm glad to take this opportunity to shine some light on the men and women who are illuminating and transforming the world. This is really a great achievement, and to all of you, as I said a moment ago when we were in the previous room, we are very grateful for the work and contributions that you are making. I'm very proud in the department to have such outstanding people associated with us. Hopefully, all of us here today can do our part to make sure that more broadly, not just in Washington, D.C., but across America, we can convey the sense of importance of what goes on in these laboratories, what these people have achieved, but what all of our lab scientists achieve, because it is truly the case that the science work at the Department of Energy is changing the world, and we are grateful for those people who are on the front end, on the cutting edge of this work. And so thank you very much for what you have done. Now it's our turn to actually recognize the 7 recipients of this year's award, and so we will have Dave Garman come back up here to read the citations which accompany these awards and bring our awardees to the stage. Dave?
As Secretary Abraham said, this is the time we'll now actually present the awards. After all the awards have been presented, the recipients will give their acceptance remarks. So, to begin, will Nathaniel Fish step forward and receive his award from Secretary Abraham? Dr. Fish, who is from Princeton University and the Princeton Plasma Physics Laboratory, is receiving his award in nuclear technology. His citation reads, "For his brilliant innovations in the theory of wave interactions in plasma, in particular for the discovery of new methods for driving electric currents." Will Betty Korber step forward to receive her award? Dr. Betty Korber of Los Alamos National Laboratory is receiving the award in life sciences. Her citation reads, "For her pioneering studies delineating the genetic characteristics of the HIV virus after its transmission from mother to child during the progression of the disease and within different tissues in the host, and for the painstaking creation of the Los Alamos HIV database, which forms the baseline for HIV research and which includes an immunological database that correlates virus sequence to drug resistance. This resource is used in the day-to-day administration of drug therapy at hospitals worldwide." Will Claire Max step forward to receive her award from Secretary Abraham? Claire Max, who is from the University of California at Santa Cruz and the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, is receiving the award in physics. Her citation reads, "For her contributions to the initial theory of adaptive optics with laser guide stars and for leadership in its subsequent application to ground-based observational astronomy." Will Fred Mortensen step forward to receive his award from Secretary Abraham? Dr. Mortensen, who is from the Los Alamos National Laboratory, is receiving the award in national security. His citation reads, "For his outstanding technical contributions in nuclear weapons design and for his leadership and expert judgment that have enabled the continued certification of the safety and reliability of nuclear weapons in an era without nuclear testing." Will Richard Sakely step forward? Richard Sakely, who's from the University of California and the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory, is receiving the award in chemistry, and bear with me, for his invention of velocity modulation spectroscopy of molecular ions for the development of far-infrared vibration rotation spectroscopy of radicals, clusters, and carbon chains, for the elucidation of the structure and potential energy services for water clusters, and for the development of an application of cavity ring-down spectroscopy techniques. Will Ivan Schuller step forward, please? Ivan Schuller, who is from the University of California at San Diego, is receiving the award in materials research. His citation reads, "For creating the field of metallic superlattices and recognizing the impact of these materials on magnetism and superconductivity through the remarkable thermodynamic and transport properties." Will Gregory Swift step forward, please? Gregory Swift, who is from the Los Alamos National Laboratory, is receiving... He can deal with this. His citation reads, for developing the theory of thermoacoustics and for designing, constructing, and testing practical devices. These devices will have many applications as refrigerators, engines, pumps, and material separators. He and his team have brought this discipline from a theoretical and laboratory curiosity to a practicality of enormous potential. The winners will now give their acceptance remarks, beginning with Dr. Fish. The others will follow in alphabetical order.
I was told to speak on any topic I liked, but please, Dr. Fish, no more than 3 minutes. After my initial panic at how to meet those two constraints, I concluded that it was, in fact, fitting, after all, that all I would have time to do is to thank a host of people and institutions, fitting because, although this award selects individuals, modern science, certainly the small part of it that I've had the privilege to work in, is far from a solitary effort. I'm thinking now of 3 circles to whom I wish to express deep and abiding gratitude. The first is my circle of colleagues, mentors, and students. My thesis advisor at MIT was Abraham Bears, and I wish to thank both him and my co-authors, Alan Boozer and Arnold Kritz, my former student, Mark Herman, and my colleagues, Bill Nevins, Vincent Chan, and Tom Antonsen, who advanced the theory further. I am especially indebted to Jean-Marcel Rax of the University of Paris for collaborating on methods to use plasma waves to control ions for different but related purposes. Most of all, I must thank Charles Carney for the closest and most wonderful partnership in unraveling the key mysteries. I am being acknowledged for predictions, but predictions remain at best high-sounding, rarefied speculations if no one demonstrates whether they work. Creative experimentalists produced these electric currents. The earliest were Miklos Porkolov and Stan Lockhart at MIT, Roger McWilliams, Masa Ono, and King-Lap Wang on a linear machine at Princeton, Shigetoshi Tanaka at Kyoto University, and particularly the PLT team at Princeton, led by Bill Hook, Stefano Burnaby, and Bob Motley. The second circle I thank includes the hard-working officers and employees of our Department of Energy, led by Ann Davies, who enable the first circle. In turn, they are enabled to enable so much extraordinary work in science because of the freedoms and energy that is America. For all of us at Princeton, the second enabling circle includes the 2 fixed stars in the firmament, the late Harold Firth, former director of PPPL, and the late Tom Stix, who as director of the graduate program in plasma physics was my own predecessor. No less am I grateful to Rob Goldston, the present director of PPPL, and its previous director, Ron Davidson, for the vibrant research environment at the Princeton Plasma Physics Laboratory. Nothing could gratify me more than to see inexhaustible, cheap, clean power produced by nuclear fusion, possibly through the use of wave-generated currents. I truly believe an economical fusion reactor will ultimately service the public at large, but it will likely rely on ideas that have not yet been conceived. It is precisely that which still needs doing that makes this field of fusion science so exciting. I am humbled by the realization that any one idea that I may have had or will have will be far from enough in itself. But I see a field of brilliant colleagues who are working hard. Given the effort of my colleagues and given the stewardship of the Department of Energy, I am confident that we as a nation, likely in concert with other nations, will develop nuclear fusion as an energy source for all nations. For my own part in this, I must thank that third circle, the innermost one, and the one that supports the others, that little microcosm of my home. With love to my wife, Toby, and my sons, Mendy, Benji, and Adam, I am delighted to accept this award.
Hello, this is an incredible honor to be here among these other 6 awardees. In particular, we have 3 awardees from Los Alamos, myself, Betty Korber, and my colleagues, Greg and Fred, who are here. And I think one of the things I wanted to tell you about today is how privileged I am to work at Los Alamos National Laboratory. I'm a biologist in my training, and I am embedded in a theoretical division where I have mathematicians and physicists who I can tantalize by problems in AIDS biology. So what I do there is, the first thing I do is I create a database. It's an international database, and it pulls together the global data about HIV. It's provided free of charge to any scientific laboratory who requests it. It's available on the web, and it's used by virtually every AIDS laboratory in the world, I think. So it's a wonderful thing to be able to provide this service, this international and national service. And I hope someone will eventually build a vaccine using that database. Simultaneously, I can build my own research projects from that database, and there I've had the incredible opportunity to collaborate with many wonderful people at Los Alamos, and I think in particular it's a place that fosters collaboration across fields, and that's been an incredibly exciting experience for me. So I think my first desire is to thank and acknowledge the theoretical group at Los Alamos that's enabled my own work and my own work towards a vaccine. The other group that I would like to thank are all of the people with HIV throughout the world that hold out their arms and get blood so we can do this research. And I think that we're presenting a message of compassion when we go forward and we say we want to help with this international problem. In our country, it's a growing problem among the urban poor, and we need to do better education to reach out to those people. But internationally, some of the groups I work with are in really appalling situations right now. I work in South Africa with many groups. I work with a mother-infant transmission cohort, and I work with pregnant women. In that group of pregnant women, they've gone from 2 to 40% infected over a decade, a 1-decade span. So I think that this gives an idea of the risk of this disease and what we're up against. And so it's really a fight that we're all in together, and I'm privileged to be able to serve as one of the people who are able to work towards fighting this epidemic at a global level. And I wanted also to thank my family who's here with me today for supporting my work and never minding when I need to work extra hours or travel to Washington. Whatever I need to do is always all right with my kids and my husband, which I'm very grateful for. My husband is also one of my collaborators as a physicist at Los Alamos. So we've had some good experiences there. And thank you all, and thank you for this incredible privilege and honor.
I'm Claire Matz. This is a tremendous honor, and I want to thank the Secretary and the Lawrence Livermore Lab Director, Mike Anastasio, for running such fine organizations in the best sense of the word. I'd especially like to thank the people who have been my mentors at Livermore, Bill Kruer, John Knuckles, Bruce Tarter, and Jeff Wadsworth, even though Jeff has gone elsewhere. And discussing science with my husband, John Ahrens, at any time of the day or night has added a whole different dimension to what it's meant to me to be a physicist, and I want to thank him as well. The work that I've been doing over the past 15 years on laser guide star adaptive optics is a great example of cross-fertilization that a few of the other people alluded to as well. In this case, cross-fertilization between the military and civilian science communities, between the DOE and the National Science Foundation, and between Livermore and the university community. The goal of this work has been to allow telescopes on the ground to see as well as if they were in space by compensating for the blurring due to turbulence in the Earth's atmosphere. Adaptive optics uses a special small deformable mirror that changes its shape to cancel out the blurring due to turbulence in the air. And it has an amazing story. The general concept was suggested by an astronomer in the 1950s, but the needed technologies just didn't exist back then. In the early 1980s, the defense community became interested in projecting laser beams into space, and they started to get interested in adaptive optics. In 1982, Will Happer, as a part of a Jason summer study for the Department of Defense, proposed using a yellow laser, the color of yellow streetlights, to excite sodium atoms up in the atmosphere at a height of about 100 kilometers, and to use that spot up there at 100 kilometers as a reference to measure the turbulence in the atmosphere. And at that point, I realized that this concept could also be used for astronomical telescopes as well as for projecting laser beams. In the late 80s, a number of us worked together, both from the Air Force and the civilian community, to get the concept declassified so that it could be applied to astronomy, and we succeeded. Livermore had the right laser technology, which was modified from a DOE program in laser isotope separation. And with DOE laser experts, we showed that this concept was feasible, and we built laser systems at observatories, at the Lick Observatory and Keck Observatory in Hawaii. In 1999, the National Science Foundation stepped in by funding a 10-year Center for Adaptive Optics, headquartered at UC Santa Cruz, with Livermore as a major partner, and with vigorous participation from 11 different universities and numerous industries. The latest chapter in this cross-disciplinary saga is that Livermore and Center for Adaptive Optics researchers are working with optometrists and vision scientists on adaptive optics to look into the human eye. So using the technology from astronomy and from the DoD, we are now able to image individual cone cells, the color photoreceptors in the retina, and investigate the movement of individual blood cells as they move through the smallest capillaries that nourish the retina. And the goal in much of this is to investigate treatments of the eye diseases that cause blindness by various effects in the retina. So it's been quite a trip and tremendous fun, and thank you so much for making this possible.
Mr. Secretary and distinguished recipients and guests, I would like to humbly accept this award and thank a multitude of people. First, I would like to thank the Department of Energy for offering this award in a field that otherwise gets little positive recognition, that is the field of national security and nuclear weapons. I would also like to recognize that the University of California received 6 out of the 7 awards this year. The university engenders a very positive environment for doing really good science. Secondly, I'd like to thank my parents, Bonnie and Fred Mortensen, who instilled in me a genuine work ethic and a core value of honesty, along with the knowledge that in this country, I could succeed in whatever field I chose so long as I wanted to work hard. Next, I would like to thank my major professor, Dr. Charles Gilbert Richards, whose competence and dedication in teaching taught me the wonders and the coolness of science, and a scientific work practice that included thoroughness and an attention to detail. This practice is a major reason that I've been successful in understanding and designing nuclear weapons. I would next like to thank my heroes. Some heroes I never had an opportunity to meet, such as Albert Einstein, Robert Oppenheimer, and even Roy Rogers. They include my father, Harold Agnew, Seymour Sack, Sig Hecker, and Barry Hanna. Two of these heroes are in the audience today. They gave me a pattern to follow, a pattern that demanded integrity and includes standing up for good science, telling the technical truth, and knowing the difference between factual scientific data and political opinion. Like Betty, I would like to thank my family also. When my wife Jeanette came to Los Alamos, there was no way she was planning on staying there for longer than 2 or 3 years. This year marked our 29th wedding anniversary, all of it in Los Alamos. She and our son Casey are the lights of my life, and I would certainly be disorganized, if not completely lost, without them. I give you a fair warning, though, that my son Casey has already said he wants to start and walk in my craters. Lastly, I would like to thank my other family, the family that I work with, my colleagues at Los Alamos National Laboratory. When my group leader, David Harris, talked to me about putting together a package for this award, I didn't think there was a way in the world that I could receive it. I felt that my award was getting to read the very nice and kind things my coworkers had to say about me and my work. To have people for whom I have great respect write the things that they did write was a wonderful experience. I've had the opportunity and the privilege of working with and for some of the best, most magnificent people in the world at a laboratory that's second to none. The job itself has also been extremely exciting and satisfying. On reflection, I have worked closely with about 80 to 100 people in my career at the laboratory, and some of these wonderful people are in the audience today, but many could not be here. Included in this group are people like Keith Despain, Steve White, Mary Wood Schultz, Rosemary Baltersitis, John Scott, Doug Johnson, Don Wade, John Stokes, and Alexander Heath, just to mention a few. I feel that I am just a representative for this group of magnificent people, and they are the ones who really won this award. For those of you who are here, and for the many that are here in spirit only, I accept this award for all of us. Thank you very much.
In case you've forgotten, I'm Rich Sakeley from the Chemistry Department at the University of California at Berkeley. And I could reread my citation to you if you'd like, but I'll spare you that. I'm very deeply honored to accept this prestigious award, not for myself, but on behalf of the more than 100 graduate students and postdoctoral researchers who have trained in my group at Berkeley during the 25 years that I've been there. One can certainly make a strong argument that this is one of the most important products of the time and the effort and the funding that we put into scientific research. Many of these people are out there in the scientific world and in the industrial world now doing first-class research in their own right. So I consider that one of the most important products that we have. None of this research would go very far at all if we didn't have the wherewithal to fund basic research at a sufficiently high level that we can accomplish these important things in science. And to that end, I want to strongly acknowledge the Department of Energy for its basic energy science program and the National Science Foundation, both of whom have funded me. I see many of my friends from the National Science Foundation and from the Department of Energy here. I won't pick you all out by name, but thank you all very much for your support over the years. Now I have a few more personal remarks to make here that were put together for me by my wife, Christine, sitting right here. I would like to publicly acknowledge that all of the accomplishments, awards, and honors that I have received over the years are explicitly, or at least indirectly, due to the strong influence of my wife, Christine Reed. my beautiful, charming, and intelligent wife, Christine Reed, sitting right here. This goes on quite a bit, but I'm limited to 3 minutes, so I best ad lib. Sitting next to Chris are my the two great loves of my life, Victoria and Julia, my 12-year-old and 10-year-old girls, respectively, and their grandmother, Jane Forbes from Cheyenne. And there's at least one more special person here that I would like to tell you a little bit about. I come from the boonies of northern Wisconsin, as far north in Wisconsin as you can go without being in upper Michigan, from a town of about 200 people. And I was not particularly motivated to go to college when I was at that time period in my life. When you grow up in northern Wisconsin, if you're not a Green Bay Packer fan and aspiring to become a Green Bay Packer, you ain't nothing. So the academics were not high on my list, but my mother, who was one of these people, the daughter of immigrants who spoke no English in northern Wisconsin, and she became a school teacher and always wanted me to go to college. Actually, the truth of the matter is she really wanted me to be a priest. But somewhere in high school, she recognized that that wasn't in the cards, so she really wanted me to go to college. So I went to the University of Wisconsin at Eau Claire, not being very enthusiastic about it, not knowing what I was going to do. The only thing that I could see tolerating was being a forestry major. So I went there as a forestry major, but of course I didn't know what I was getting into. This required chemistry, math, physics, biology, all kinds of this stuff. But the remarkable thing was I ended up really liking this stuff. And one of the most important reasons that I ended up liking science and mathematics, particularly chemistry, is due to the influence of a very wonderful teacher and a man who's been very important throughout my career. This is Professor Alan Denayo, sitting right there. Please stand up, Alan. And his wife, Val. Al took me under his wings when I was a freshman at Eau Claire, helped me learn how to do scientific research in his laboratory and in the laboratories of colleagues at Eau Claire, and has been a special influence on me ever since. I can't thank you enough. It got me into graduate school when my credentials were questionable, right? Now, as Al is fond of saying, what's amazing about Sakely is not the heights to which he has risen, but the depths from whence he came. Correct? Is that an accurate quote? So, one other person I would like to acknowledge, I see sitting right there, is one of my very first graduate students at Berkeley. This is a tremendous treasure that we have at the University of California, Berkeley, in that we have a wealth of brilliant graduate students in chemistry, math, and physics who come there for undergraduate and their graduate degrees, and Jeff Oretsky was one of these, one of my very first students, who was the first person to observe the infrared spectrum of absorption spectrum of a negative ion. There's Jeff Oretsky. He's now has his own research group at the Naval Research Laboratories. So, the final thing I guess I would like to say to you is tell you a little bit about the research that my group is doing right now, which doesn't bear much resemblance to what was talked about in the acknowledgement. My group has embarked on a study of liquid water and its surface by soft X-ray spectroscopy. And you might wonder, what on earth could we possibly want to know about liquid water? But it turns out that the nature of liquid water, and especially its surface, remains one of the great scientific unsolved problems of science at this point. And in my opinion, what is really needed to understand this crucial problem that underlies many things in biology, many things in engineering, is a new generation of experiments. So my group has embarked on what I hope is a new generation of powerful experiments to understand the detailed molecular nature of, as I tell my daughters, what makes water wet. And in order to do this, we use the soft X-ray facility at the Lawrence Berkeley Laboratory that's called the Advanced Light Source. This is the brightest source of soft X-rays in the world. And without a facility like this run by the Department of Energy, we would not be able to do the type of experiments that we're embarking on. And if should any of you be interested in what we're doing, we had our first paper on this subject come out in Science last week. So you might take a look. But again, the credit here goes directly to Lawrence Berkeley Laboratory and the people who run the Advanced Light Sources, $100 million enterprise there that allows us to do this new generation science. So in closing, I again thank you very much for this great honor. This is a really important award, as I can see by the many people who have gone before me. So I'm very proud of this. But as I tell my daughters all the time, no matter how good you are, you can always do better. Right? You can always be better. So my final words to you will be some words that are now very familiar to those of us from California. I'll be back. Thank you.
I'm sure you're already exhausted with all this ceremony, and I just realized that what I did is I picked up the list of the people that are here, so I forgot my speech, actually. So I was looking very nervously in my talks, and luckily for me, I found it. And it's very lucky for me because I started thinking when Nona Shepard called me up to give some personal remarks, how did I get here? And I think that the way I got it is just the same way as I gave the speech. I was lucky. One day I went into the lab. I found these two materials, niobium and copper, and asked, I wonder what happens if one makes layers out of these materials. And as they say in Belgium, where I'm on sabbatical now, voila, here I am. They have very interesting and wonderful properties, and now they are called metallic superlattices. So it's even better because they have a fancy name. And I was lucky that somebody actually at DOE listened to me. Because, you know, they could have just said, what the hell is this guy talking about? So, and they listened to me and they let me pursue the research and they paid on this gamble. So I realized that luck guided all my life. I'm very lucky actually to be part of this great country. I wandered around 4 different countries, and I'm, as the representative of foreign scientists, foreign-born scientists, I really would like to thank this country for accepting us. I'm the only one among you guys are all gringos, but I am not. The other people that I have to thank is I have to thank my mother. I remember when I was like 8 years old, my mother had 4 years of school, believe it or not, in those countries where I was born, Transylvania. There were people that had 4 years of school. And my mother was leading the life of Marie Curie, was leading the life of Toulouse-Lautrec. And that had a really lasting experience on me. What the hell this woman of 4 years of high school, of 4 years of school was leading the life of Marie Curie? My father actually, who was 7 years of school, so he was really educated, he was a jeweler, so I'm gonna, you know, test this thing if it is true. He told me, you know, a man is as many languages as he speaks, and since then I tried to learn more and more languages. I'm up to 7, I'll see how many more I can learn. And he didn't laugh when I told him I want to be a physicist. Actually, already at age about 7 or 8, I thought I wanted to be a physicist. He asked me, do you know that you'll have to study all your life? And how the hell this man knew this? I don't know. And then I had an aunt who, when I was 10 years old, she was one day walking with me, and she was holding my hand, and I looked up at her, and she asked me, little boy, what are you going to be when you grow up? And I can tell you this was a very touching experience because my aunt had her arm tattooed. My aunt had been in Auschwitz, and she actually wondered about what I will be, and when I told her I'm going to be a physicist, she said, that's very good, you should be a physicist. I don't think she knew what a physicist was, neither did I for that matter. So my physics teachers, I had a high school teacher in South America where I studied who never gave me more than a B, and I'm still trying to get an A from him. I had a college professor who everybody wanted to do general relativity and particle physics. I hope I don't think something wrong here, and he convinced me that condensed matter physics is the thing to do. In graduate school, I had a professor who told me, you know, just go back in the lab and do the experiment. Stop trying to prove that the experiment cannot be done. And I'm lucky for him that he told me this because I lucked out with this. And I had another advisor who told me that as a PhD, the most important thing to learn is that you can do anything you want. and you will get it done if you have the confidence. Now, then I had my academic family. I had a lot of young people that worked with me, and they keep me young, and I'm really have a great pleasure to be at the university. And I have my physics buddies, with whom I still share rooms, believe it or not, although I don't need to at conferences. Now, my children, both of them are here. They are actually, I have a problem looking at them because they're so old by now. My children are both became scientists. And actually, a lot of people say, are you crazy? And I'm delighted that they are scientists. And next time, I hope I will be sitting there and they will be sitting up here. And above all, I have to thank my wife, because over many years she has put up with a lot from me. And she even put up with me forgetting our anniversary, our 20th anniversary, for trying to determine the structure of yttrium, barium 2, copper 3, oxygen 7. So this tells you about as much as he told her. And then I hung up that on the refrigerator, which really pissed her off. So I'm lucky that I got many of these committees gave me this award. And so the question is, where do I go from here? And so I will let luck guide me. Since luck has guided me until now, why be intelligent about this? I will let luck guide me. So I'm trying to do the same thing with organic materials nowadays and make an artificial three-dimensional material. That's my goal in life. Can I put together an artificial three-dimensional material? And I even convinced some of the people that are sitting here in the audience, actually, from the Department of Energy and from the Department of Defense to fund this work. So I'm really grateful to them that they are actually still listening and going along with these crazy ideas. So all this proves something very, very important, I think. All this proves something that which unfortunately I did not discover. It was discovered by Groucho Marx. That if you have to choose between brain and luck, always choose luck. Thank you.
You can think of sound as a wave of pressure and motion traveling through the air from a source like my voice to a receiver like your ears. But there are also temperature and heat waves in sound. And these can be really powerful for intense sound in high pressure gases. This is thermoacoustics. We have engines that can convert heat into acoustic power. Kilowatts today, maybe megawatts soon. We have acoustic refrigerators too, and acoustic pumps, and we know how to make a sound wave unmix the gases in a mixture of gases. A sound wave in air, tailored correctly, will concentrate nitrogen near the source of the sound and oxygen near the receiver of the sound. So we've been working on these things for many years. We understand some of the fundamentals. We've explored some of the practical applications. We have not had much success in the commercial realm yet, so we're not done yet. From among 20 very close collaborators through the years, some of the most essential are here tonight. And I wish I could tell you a little bit about each one of them, but there's only time for one story, so I'll just tell one story. In 1986, in the earliest stages of our thermoacoustics research at Los Alamos, our beloved boss passed away unexpectedly. And suddenly I was faced with having to worry about the overall direction of the research and where the money came from. And a few months later, I met the manager of some of that money, Jerry Smith, when I was in the DOE building in Germantown for the first time. And I had no idea what the proper relationship between a scientist and a program manager was. And I was nervous anyway. And so after a while, I just said, "What do you want me to do?" And Jerry said, "I don't know. You figure it out. Just make me proud of my decision to support you." And that's all he said. And that made such an impression on the young Greg Swift at the time that trying to make Jerry proud of what came next actually became the key touchstone for most of my decisions on what to do in thermoacoustics between now and then, between then and now. So Jerry is sitting in the back row there. I want to thank you for giving a young guy a lot of freedom to follow his instincts, to follow the twisted course of thermoacoustics for all these years, and for giving us 20 years of seed money from the Office of Science. Because without that seed money, a lot of projects wouldn't have sprouted that are already underway, and a lot more in the future wouldn't sprout either. Jerry, thanks very much. And thank you all for coming this afternoon.
This is the conclusion of our ceremony. We ask that the laureates remain up front so we can take one last group picture with the Secretary. And for the rest of you, thank you very much for coming, and please enjoy the reception.